Hi, good morning. Thanks everyone for taking the time to come and learn about our 18-month journey at Morgan Stanley Wealth Management and what we've learned along the way in our generative AI journey. As Diana said, my name is David Wood. I'm responsible within our wealth management department for delivering our knowledge management and generative AI strategies. And given that you guys all are here because this is a generative AI track, I wanted to give you kind of an insight into what some of the conversations we've had over the past 18 months in Morgan Stanley, particularly as it relates to getting senior executives on board with the technology. So I'll start with just a kind of fun little slide, and I don't have to tell you that generative AI has captured the attention of the masses. You're probably here because you know what generative AI can do. But some of the conversations we've had at Morgan Stanley started with, well, great, David, you know what this technology is because I have a son who uses this for his homework projects all the time. And I'm sure some of you that are doing that, or you have those kids that are using these capabilities. I remember having very senior executives ask me, like, David, that's great, but isn't this just like a new form of web search? Isn't this grabbing knowledge that's on the internet and just regurgitating it back? What is generative about generative AI? I really thought about that for a little bit. I tried to think, like, how do I prove to this important executive that this machine isn't just regurgitating things and different packages on the internet? How do I prove that this is actually generating something novel? So I said to myself, you know what? There's probably no one in the world who's writing Dr. Seuss poems about Morgan Stanley. So let me come into this trusty tool that you guys all have been using probably since November 30th, called ChatGPT. Let me ask you to send a Dr. Seuss poem about Morgan Stanley. And at this point, you all know that GPT is based on taking a lot of computing power, training deep learning models on the sum total of the internet. I'm just see a lot of Dr. Seuss poems. Morgan Stanley company is creating a first of its kind generative AI. I'm going to give you just a few lines because I just want to introduce you to Dr. Seuss poems in your generative AI talk. So I'll start with, in the land of Wall Street, where numbers do play, I have a firm named Morgan Stanley leading the way. A financial class with suits and ties so neat, in a world of stocks and bonds, they never make defeat. So, I just wanted to lead into it. You're given a generative AI track, and I want to give you a first of its kind generated novel poem about Morgan Stanley. Right? This is why you're here. Alright. So before you all walk away and tell your colleagues or your friends, I listen to this guy from Morgan Stanley talk about how Morgan Stanley's writing poems, right? I want to be clear, we have a broader strategy at play that doesn't involve just cute poems. Let me start with what our wealth management business is. Because many of you may not be familiar with Morgan Stanley Wealth. We help people. We help people with their financial life. Right? Just like doctors help their medical life, we think our advisors are there to help our clients with their financial life, which, by the way, is a big part of their life. The way we're organized, we have over 2.5 million high net worth clients that are serviced by our tens of thousands of financial advisors. We've also built out a workplace solutions business that may, for some of the folks here, be helping manage your equity plans or your retirement 401k plans. And you may have heard a few years ago, we acquired a brokerage platform called E-Trade, which was really timely, especially in the hype of the meme stock craze, right? So across the high net worth individuals, the workplace clients, and our self-directed E-Trade digital trading clients, we've got about 20 million people in our world. And each of these 20 million expect, when they engage with Morgan Stanley, they're getting access to high quality products, banking products. They're expecting that we're providing leading research and advice that tells them what's up with inflation or the debt ceiling or all the other topics that come up in the financial world. They're expecting that when they have an issue or when they have a question or concern, that we're providing client service that addresses that need as quickly as possible.
And they're expecting that when we engage them, whether they're clients or prospects, we're engaging them in a way that's personalized and suited to their specific situation. They're also expecting that all of our services across these middle four are connected into our client-facing platforms, our mobile apps, our digital websites, and that all of our technology speaks to each other and connected to each other. Well, that's really hard, right? When you have 20 million clients with these expectations, you need to find a way to drive scale. And that's the problem statement that when we identified generative AI, we thought this would be where we wanted to focus our efforts. So how do I think about our strategy at Morgan Stanley Wealth? And how do I think about the future of the financial services strategy? We think it comes down to our people, right? We think that our financial advisors are the best in the world. We think they do an incredible job of listening. They listen to you about your hopes and dreams for your financial life. They listen to you about what your kids' aspirations are, where they want to go to school, how they're going to need to be funded to go to that school, private school, public school, whatever it is, right? We think, though, that a lot of our advisors don't get as much time as they want to spend time with their clients or even to acquire new clients. And that's where the opportunity comes. With generative AI, we think two main pillars are going to happen for us. One is that many of the tasks that they have to spend accessing our computers and our systems, conducting processes, reading content, we think a lot of these things can be driven with AI to be automated, right? We think there's going to be efficiencies in individual tasks that they no longer will have to worry about. We think the world is going to shift to one from creating everything on the fly, creating that email, creating that marketing campaign, potentially even creating code, to a world of editing where generative AI will take that first pass at creating that content, creating that code, creating that analysis, then allowing that human being to be the editor, right? And in many ways to us, we think it's no different than when we were all 22 years old starting our career, right? We had to have someone sit there and coach us and guide us and refine us to get to a higher level of quality output. And we see a lot of our human beings taking on more of that role of refiner and mentor, but instead of to that 22-year-old, now to refining the output from these capabilities. For us at Morgan Stanley, we've had a track record well before generative AI to include systems like next best action platforms that help recommend our FAs what you need to engage your client with, powered by traditional forms of machine learning. And we see generative AI as just that next evolution along the journey of giving our financial advisors tools that maximize their potential and tools that give them more time back with those clients, to have more of those conversations about life events, retirement planning, how many vacations they want to have, what kind of lifestyle they want to have, right? And that's all time that's valuable, and that's time we want to have with our clients. So as we thought about where do we start first, right? I'm sure many of you who've explored these capabilities have asked yourself, well, this can do so many things. Where does it add most value to my organization? Or if you're on the product side, you're asking yourself, how do I add value to potential client organizations? And we thought as we were exploring, it was maybe a little fun and cutesy around the poem idea. But for us, we think about Morgan Stanley, what do we have? Not only do we have outstanding financial advisors who know their clients, but we have outstanding expertise. We have people who are PhDs or other types of 20, 30-year experience levels that are training up on every aspect of research you can imagine, right? They generate content, tens of thousands of documents about this on an annual basis. We have people who write procedures and guides and manuals that help our FAs, advisors, and their teams figure out what to do for any given scenario. We have tremendous intellectual expertise, and we historically have struggled to make that accessible to our advisors, who many of which are spread out across the whole country, which means that they can't just come walk down the hall and talk to David Wu in New York and ask a question about process, procedure, how much we charge for a particular investment vehicle, right? But now we're with this capability, our first order is let's take our intellectual expertise, Let's connect it to the powers of generative AI, and let's effectively give our advisors access to our chief investment officer via a virtual assistant, access to our qualified experts on retirement or procedures, et cetera, via generative AI. So we started there. We've been on this journey really for the last 18 months with this as our first use case, all around creating efficiency and effectiveness for the FAs. Just to give an example of how this is set up to look like today, and this is a product we're going live for our entire wealth management organization by the end of Q3. It's taking the underlying intelligence of the GPT models, but pointing that exclusively to our content and our content alone. And many of you are here because you've heard of the topic of hallucination. For us at Morgan Stanley, we care a lot about that. We worry about giving our advisors wrong information. Wrong information leads to potentially bad outcomes for our clients. That's why we've anchored and grounded our responses to be from our 100,000 documents and our 100,000 documents only. Meaning that if you ask a question about something that's not covered, the system will respond, I don't know. That's not in the content that we're covered. Every answer also comes with supporting sources, right? Because in life, I think we all kind of heard the concept of check your sources, right? I think that's really important for us as we think about how do we get our financial advisors comfortable. So when we go live in Q3, we think about our 5-year journey. 5 years ago, a human being comes in, types in a 1 or 2 word search term, keywords, and they get a bunch of blue links, right? And I think you've all experienced the blue link. You click through, you have to read some, you have to back out, on and on. We think we're going to shift people to no longer getting a bunch of blue links to instead getting responses with sources as to where that underlying fact was provided from. Additional to that, we have these thumbs up, thumbs down, which you guys see in many applications, but this means a lot to us. Every thumbs up and thumbs down gets interrogated by my team and my technology partners to find out where things are working and where things are not working effectively, all as part of an ongoing process to measure and improve the quality of the responses. One of the big lessons in our journey is that we talk about generative AI being able to generate responses that are the levels of human beings. Well, it turns out you really want to have some human beings involved in helping get to that point, right? So we spent a lot of time over our 18 months thinking about what is the human strategy that we need behind it to get the quality output to a good state. And it starts with gathering the asks. Even though we have 100,000 documents, there's no single person on my team that knows every single question that people want to know. So we spend a lot of time mobilizing, engaging advisors, people within different departments into wealth management. And we said, take our prototype, type in whatever question you want, right? And once we gather that data around the question, we had a better sense of, do we have the content or do we not have the content? In many cases, we had to go back and create more content because we realized the demand was greater than what the actual content inventory we had. The next thing we learned is you really need to curate your knowledge. High quality responses only come from high quality content. And sometimes it's not doesn't get as much hype, but having people who are accountable for working with your organization to get rid of outdated, expired, inaccurate, incomplete content is going to make your strategy work. And we spent a lot of time over years building up ownership, standards, accountability for our organization to make sure our 100,000 documents can be as accurate and as complete as possible. Next thing we think a lot about is collaborating closely on UX, right? GPT is great, but how you render the output into the tooling that your organization uses today is going to go a long way in terms of getting people comfortable trusting that. So we spend a lot about where do we deploy these capabilities? Are they embedded in systems that your users are used to experiencing, right? And then most importantly, what we learned about this, you need a lot of feedback. There's no single person in my organization that knows the answer to every question. And you know what? There's probably no single person in your organization that knows the answer to every possible question. So early on, we said, let's get as many people to not only come in and ask questions of our prototype, but rate the quality of the responses. And only after cycle after cycle after cycle have we been able to meaningfully improve the quality of the responses to a stage where we feel comfortable launching in Q3. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of people telling you, hey, where's the answer good? Where's the answer not good? And it takes work from your team to come up with experiments to test and assess, can new techniques, can new approaches improve the quality of the responses? Ultimately, we've been involved for 18 months. We're proud of our partnership with OpenAI. We've embarked on our first use case around connecting our intellectual capital into the powers of generative AI, all for the purpose of driving more time back to our advisors to talk to their clients. So some of the things that we've learned so far, it starts with mobilizing the organization. I spent a lot of time thinking about that Morgan Stanley poem example, right? But it went a long way to getting senior influential executives more the art of how this works. And I could see by showing them that poem that the wheels were turning in his head. And then we were able to activate other members of his organization to think about how do they take the capabilities to drive effectiveness in that part of the organization. But you got to expose them early. Show them the art of the possible. We also learned along the way that GPT is incredibly powerful, but it alone itself couldn't solve many of the use cases we wanted to do. A year and a half ago, I had no concept of what a vector database was. I had no concept of how do you take the content that sits in your organization and figure out ways to retrieve it so that it could be input into the responses, right? So I think you need to consider what are all the tooling you need around the GPT models to deliver your use case. Quality control, right? High quality responses come from high quality content, high quality data, high quality facts. Having an organization that has standards, guidelines, and accountability for this stuff is really going to make your strategy work a lot better. Your stakeholders. We have at Morgan Stanley been very blessed to have an incredible team of financial advisors who are willing to come in and be testers well early before we got it to a point where we felt good with the responses. I think it's important to get those allies, get those champions from the user community and get them comfortable that's not going to work, maybe in the first run, but that you need their feedback and draft them as part of your team because that's going to be how you're going to get the quality higher. From an innovation mindset, you're going to hear a lot about prompt engineering, right? We learned a lot about prompt engineering and the way you need to communicate with the models. Embrace the innovation mindset. You're going to struggle at times, especially for high value use cases, but don't be afraid to tinker, test, evaluate, and try to deploy. From a regulatory and technology landscape, I think the world changed on November 30th when ChatGPT came out, right? I think you've seen many other technology companies and some at this conference emerge, all aimed with trying to harness the capabilities of generative AI. You've seen regulators come out with more perspective on these things. And in the banking industry, we're heavily regulated, so we pay a lot of attention to these things. So I would just say stay nimble. Things are going to change a lot. It's been a wild ride for the last 8 months. I see it only being wilder for the next few months. And lastly, in the world of banking, draft your legal compliance and risk partners onto your team. Sometimes it slows down potentially how fast you want to move, but with technology, with this much capability, this much potential, it's important to act in a responsible way. Whether you're in banking or not in banking, I think you owe it as your responsibility to your stakeholders to work effectively and to mitigate risk for your organization. I think if you do these things, you're going to take your organization on the way to driving what the value is for you guys. So thanks for your time.